He is 34. He has a job title that sounds important at parties. He has never once, not a single time, taken his car in for the noise it makes on cold mornings, because taking it in would mean admitting the car is something he actually owns and has to maintain, rather than something that is just temporarily his. His phone has 3 dating apps he opens and closes without messaging anyone. His mother still does his taxes, not because he cannot do them, because some quiet part of him has never agreed to be the kind of person who does his own taxes. If any part of that made you wince, do not look away yet, stay with it a little longer. There is a name for what is happening inside a man like this, and it is older than you might think. Carl Jung called it Puer Aeternus, a Latin phrase that translates to eternal boy. It describes a very specific psychological posture. Not immaturity in the way people throw that word around casually, something more precise, a refusal, buried below conscious thought, to fully step into the ordinary responsibilities of an adult life. Not because the man is incapable, because some part of him has quietly decided that stepping in means giving something up, and he is not ready to name what that something is. Here is what makes this pattern so easy to miss from the outside. It rarely looks like failure. Often, it looks like charm. The man caught in this pattern is frequently likable, quick-witted, full of half-finished plans that sound exciting when he describes them over drinks. He is the friend everyone assumes is about to have his breakthrough any year now. The tragedy, if you can call it that, is that any year now has a way of becoming every year, indefinitely. To understand where this comes from, it helps to look at what psychologist Marie-Louise von Franz found when she studied this pattern closely, building directly on Jung's own work. She noticed a recurring detail in the histories of these men. Many of them had a parent, most often a mother, who unconsciously needed them to remain a child. Sometimes this looked like excessive praise for the smallest achievements. Sometimes it looked like a home where difficulty was smoothed away before the boy ever had to face it himself. Either way, the underlying message landed the same. You are special exactly as you are, and specialness does not need to be tested against the world. That message feels warm going in. It curdles later, because eventually the boy becomes a man, and the world does not care how special he was assumed to be. It only asks what he can actually do, under pressure, on an ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday. This is the part almost nobody talks about, honestly. So let us talk about it now. The eternal boy is not simply avoiding effort. He is avoiding a specific kind of information. As long as he never fully commits to anything, whether a career, a partner, a version of himself, he never has to find out if the specialness was real. Every unfinished project is a question left carefully unanswered. Every relationship kept just casual enough to exit is a door held open on purpose. It is not laziness. It is a strategy for protecting a fragile and unexamined belief that he might, underneath everything, be ordinary. There is a phrase Jung used that captures the daily texture of this life with unsettling accuracy. He called it the provisional life. It means living as though the current chapter does not really count. The apartment stays half furnished because a better one is coming eventually. The job is fine for now, obviously temporary, a placeholder beneath his true ability. The relationship is good enough, though he keeps a private mental list of reasons it might not be the right one, just in case leaving becomes necessary. Nothing is ever fully inhabited. Everything is a draft, and drafts, conveniently, are never held to the same standard as a finished piece of work. Psychologist Jeffrey Arnett gave this life stage a formal name in the year 2000, publishing his theory in the journal American Psychologist. He called it emerging adulthood, the stretch from the late teens through the 20s, sometimes longer, marked by genuine instability in identity, living situation, and direction. Arnett was careful to say, this instability is not a personal defect. It reflects real shifts in how modern life is structured. But his research also showed something important. Most people pass through this stage and land somewhere solid on the other side. The man-child is what happens when someone gets caught in that window, rather than moving through it, and stays there for years past the point where staying still made any developmental sense. So what does the daily experience of being stuck actually feel like? From the inside, it rarely feels dramatic. It usually feels like small, quiet postponements that add up without announcing themselves. Saying yes to plans and then finding a reason to cancel when the day arrives. Noticing every flaw in a partner right as the relationship starts to feel serious, as though searching for permission to leave before anyone can leave first. Keeping a running mental tally of everyone and everything that made adult life harder than it should have been. A boss, a bad economy, parents who did not prepare him properly. Some of these grievances may even be accurate. None of them change what actually needs to happen on Monday morning. That last point deserves honest attention, because it is the most convincing trap in the entire pattern. Blaming circumstance feels like clarity. It feels like finally identifying the true obstacle. But circumstances being real does not make them the whole explanation. And treating them as the whole explanation is simply a more respectable way of continuing to wait. So what actually interrupts this? Not a single dramatic morning of sudden motivation. Something quieter and less cinematic than that. The first real shift happens in how commitment itself gets defined. Many men in this pattern have quietly come to believe that responsibility is the enemy of freedom, that the day he commits fully to a path is the day every more interesting version of himself dies. It is worth sitting with how backward that belief actually is. Untested potential does not stay preserved like something in a jar. It simply fades, year by year, the way a muscle fades from disuse. Commitment is not the cage closing. It is the only structure that ever allows raw ability to become an actual, visible, real thing in the world. From there, the work becomes almost embarrassingly plain, though never easy in practice. Finish the small, unfinished thing sitting quietly in the background of his mind. Take his own car in for the noise. Send the message that might get no reply. Apply for the job he privately assumes he will not get. Sit in the discomfort of being ordinary at something new, rather than exceptional at nothing. Each small real failure survived, does something the imagined ones never could. It proves the floor does not actually fall away, and it rarely happens alone. Left entirely to himself, the same mind that built this pattern is remarkably skilled at generating reasonable-sounding excuses, because generating them has been its full-time occupation for years. What often breaks the loop is another person who refuses to accept the excuse. A partner, a mentor, a friend, willing to say the honest thing out loud instead of the comfortable thing. So that man, from the beginning, 34, unmessaged apps, a car with a sound he has learned to ignore, a mother still filing his taxes. He is not broken, and he is not a lost cause. He has simply been mistaking the waiting room for safety. And the strange, almost freeing truth underneath all of it is this: the finished version of himself was never going to arrive on his own schedule. He was always going to have to build that man badly at first, on some forgettable Tuesday, with absolutely nobody watching. If you recognized any part of yourself in this, that recognition is not a verdict against you. It is simply the beginning of paying attention.